What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, and I am joined today by the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, my main man, Stuckey. Stuck, what's going on? Happy to be back in the fold. I know we're about to get some marathon pod recording sessions out here for NFL.
Yeah, it's camp is on the horizon. Just another hurdle that we're about to clear and come up on that will signify that the season will be here before we know it. So yeah, just continuing the grind. Looking forward to kind of discussing a key question or two for every team, starting with the AFC in this episode and then the NFC, kind of things that we're looking for, things that could make or break a team's season. Obviously, there's a lot to keep an eye on with camp coming up. You have contract situations, injuries, sometimes legal issues, and then how are the rookies going to perform? How are the new additions going to plug some holes? And then you have coaching changes as well. So there's some schematic angles to keep an eye on. So there's a lot to watch and learn as we quickly approach the 2025 NFL season.
Yeah, it feels like there's not really as many just consistent teams that we can plug in this year. It seems like there's a lot of questions, even for some of the teams, with the same coaches and whatnot. So we'll start out with the AFC in this episode, and then be sure to be on the lookout for the NFC episode as well. And I'm going to lead it off, Stuck, with the AFC South. And, I got to start at the top with the Jacksonville Jaguars, because I think Liam Cohen could make a big difference, but we don't know. We have a small sample. So where are you at with Liam Cohen and his ability to potentially be transformative for this offense, for this organization, and specifically for Trevor Lawrence and that offensive line?
Yeah, O-line will obviously be something to watch. Getting Macari, I think, was a nice get. He's a very versatile guy, too. I mean, guy can play almost any position. So if there's injuries or having that versatility never hurts. But I'm a big Cohen believer. I get the sample size thing, but you can go back. I've talked about this before. You can go back to Kentucky. And when he's at Kentucky, the offense is really good. He was there, then left, and came back. When he's not, you could just see the drop off. It's something we'll talk about maybe with the Bucs. And if there is any negative consequences from him leaving with Baker and that offense. But I have full faith in Cohen. I think just schematically, they're going to be much better. There's a couple other interesting questions with the Jags. I mean, number one, the most interesting thing to watch is Travis Hunter, right? Most of his work so far has been a wide receiver. They said the plan was going to be. How many snaps, when, what type of packages does he get with the defense? That'll be interesting to watch, because the Jags certainly can always use help in the secondary. It's not just corner that I'm watching and Hunter's potential impact there. It's the safety room as well. I mean, you lost Cisco. Who cares? You bring in Murray. I mean, that's probably you paid him. He's probably going to start. Probably a wash. Murray's not going to move the needle at safety. But that other safety spot, it's I don't know. There's 4 guys that are in the mix. You have Savage, who's probably past his prime. Wingard, really limited ceiling. Antonio Johnson, he struggled at times when he's been back there, still young. And then the really interesting name is a rookie, Ransaw, who I like, but he's a rookie and it's a position change if he's going to go back there to safety. So I'll be curious to see if he has any impact and can make any waves in potentially securing that other safety spot. There's going to be a lot of changes. I think the Cohen change is going to be positive. On the defensive side, it can't get any worse, but there's going to be another schematic change there as well. They're going to be much more zone heavy than they were last year. And I think the secondary will go a long way into determining if the Jaguars can have a material improvement on that side of the ball. So I'm excited to watch. There's a lot of moving pieces with the Jags, with their coaching and some pieces and some key position battles. So it'll be an interesting camp for the Jags for sure.
Yeah, and the thing about their defense, it's kind of been bad for so long, but at least on paper, we're kind of cautiously optimistic that they should be on the positive end of more shootouts this time. This time with just all the changes they're making on offense. So any change for the defense, I think you're kind of playing with house money there for Jacksonville. So I do think things are looking up. Let's go to the Indianapolis Colts, and the major thing is always going to be when you have questions at quarterback is going to be who's going to be the quarterback, who's going to start more games. I think Daniel Jones is the favorite in the market. I'm not with it at all, and I think they have to find out what they see in Richardson. I think ultimately it's going to be mediocre at best, and it could be really bad. I mean, we forget Daniel Jones got benched for Tommy DeVito and Boyle and Block and whoever else they trotted out there. So I mean, he's not good either. But like, how good can the Colts be realistic? Like, do they actually have a ceiling? And is it like a legit ceiling, or is it just like, okay, they go 9-7 and 10-6 and go to the playoffs and get destroyed, or is this team ever going to get to more of that with this roster?
Yeah, I mean the ceiling. I agree with you. Like where you drafted Richardson, it's like it's time to find out. Now there's health questions that'll be settled. That's one of the most interesting quarterback battles that we'll watch in camp, and it's how healthy and when is Richardson ready, and what are the reps going to be split? What do the rep split look like? I think their ceiling, you can only reach their ceiling with Richardson if he's somehow, because I mean Daniel Jones can run too, but Richardson's mobility and his arm talent, it just comes down to his accuracy and consistency. If you're going to reach any type of ceiling, it's got to be Richardson leading you there. I'm not sure he's the guy, but you got to find out. I mean, the sample size is still really small. I think we kind of know, but we don't know for sure. There's not certainty there. So I think you have to roll with Richardson. Obviously his health is a question. The reason that the Colts could have some upside, I mean, the division they're in is not the toughest in the league. The defense should improve just on schematics alone. And, they added a couple guys in the secondary, which they needed to do. I'll be curious to see if they can get any contribution from some of their rookies, JTT, Justin Wally at the corner spot. But, the defense, the secondary is improved from a talent perspective. And just schematically, they're not going to be the worst team in the league anymore, where everyone knows what you're doing every single snap, every single week. So there's some upside there. Curious to watch some of the things that Anarumo is doing on that side of the ball. And then, the offensive line, there's a battle in the interior, right? They lost 2 interior offensive linemen to the Vikings. So Bortolini, Goncalves, who gets that center spot, who gets that right guard spot. Danny Pinter, I think, has been taking some first-team reps at center. So we'll see how the interior of the offensive line shakes out. But, yeah, this is going to come down to the quarterback. I think you probably have a lower floor and a higher ceiling with Richardson. But, I mean, you got to find out what you have. You're not winning the Super Bowl with Daniel Jones.
Exactly. And the case for a guy like Richardson is, and Hurts, I think, was always better. Most quarterbacks are better than Richardson, but that's got to be the model. Like if you get lucky with a GM and you get your roster right, there's ways to do this thing with a guy like Richardson. Whereas Daniel Jones, it's just all propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be the exception to the rule from what we've seen so far. But I mean, Josh Allen was. You have to at least see, because it's not like you're saying to yourself, okay, we don't really trust him yet, but we have Daniel Jones. And in the AFC, we're going to get through that gauntlet with Daniel Jones guiding us to the promised land. I mean, what's the ceiling with Daniel Jones? Maybe you can win the division because your division isn't great. And then what are you doing in the playoffs? Like, you're not going anywhere. So, quarterback battle, interesting to watch. And then Tyler Warren, seeing his impact and what they do with him. It's a guy that you can use in so many different ways. So that'll be exciting to watch as well.
Yeah, the Colts, if they get good quarterback play, they start looking a lot different. The defense looks better. The only real glaring issue is at quarterback. So, I mean, and obviously there could be unforeseen injuries, drop-off.
Yeah, but that interior of the offensive line, they figure that out. And there's guys – I mean, what's his Goncalves is making a position change if he gets the starting job. So at guard, so that's something to watch. But if they figure out that these guys will have experience that they're replacing Freeze and Kelly with, but if they figure out the interior offensive line, they're pretty good in the trenches then on both sides of the ball if they stay healthy, improve their secondary. You obviously have Taylor, you have some interesting weapons. Maybe you don't have that like alpha guy that you're still lacking there, but yeah, it just comes down to the quarterback. And in the AFC, if you don't have a top tier quarterback, who cares? You're irrelevant.
Yeah, but this is Steichen. He was a Philly guy at one point, right? Like I think the Hurts Eagle offense.
Yeah, I'm saying you have to find out with Richardson, because if you don't have a top
Yeah.
tier quarterback in the AFC, it doesn't matter. So find out if you do. If you don't, it's on to the next. Got to find another guy, because in the AFC, for years, for the foreseeable future, you're not sniffing a Super Bowl if you don't have a top 10 quarterback in the league. You're not getting to the AFC.
By the way, I actually think Josh Downs would catch 100 balls on like half the teams in the league. I mean, he's been piss poor quarterback situations, so I'm actually pretty high on him as that guy to take that leap into the elite. But it's it all comes down to
you got to get him the ball. You got to get him the ball accurately.
Yeah. Tennessee. My thing is Cam Ward. He's a rookie. Like, we don't need to say, oh, how is he going to do? We kind of know what the question marks are with him. We kind of know where they're at. But I want to start on the other side of the ball, because I do think Jacksonville got better at receiver. I think Houston got better at receiver. Tennessee's cornerback situation is looking pretty dire. Will L'Jarius Sneed or anyone else in that room show any positives? Are they even done adding to this group? I mean, what do you see? Because you got to be able to defend at some point. You're not Joe Burrow here.
Yeah, the defense. I mean, Ward is obviously the headliner that we're going to watch, and just don't toss it to the other team, and then you're an improvement already over Will Levis. We'll see if some of the young receivers can step up that they got. Some of the rookies, Io Manor, DK. I still think Restrepo can find a place in this league. I know he wasn't drafted and he can't run, but all the guy does is get open, man. I mean, he's like buried in the depth chart, but he played with Ward. I was shocked he didn't get drafted. I get the measurables, but that's a guy who's just going to get open and catch the ball. But obviously not going to make or break the Titans season. Yeah, the defense has to be better. And it would go a long way if Sneed returned to his 2023 form. He's hurt last year. How healthy is he now? He also has legal issues that he's dealing with. Like, so what's going on there? I don't know. And if he returns to form and he becomes the lockdown number one corner that you went out and got, number one, now you have a lockdown corner, but it allows you to do so many other things defensively. And then you don't have to answer the pressing questions that you have at both linebacker, your pass rush, still a little shaky off the edge. So those are some of the things that I'm watching. But yeah, I think obviously Cam Ward and his development he's the quarterback. It's going to go a long way in determining the Titans season. But I agree with you. The defense is what I'm watching, and Sneed is just a huge part of that. If you went out, you thought you were getting a number one corner, and if he plays like he did last year, I get it. He was hurt most of the year, but if he doesn't give you that number one level corner quality, could be another long year for Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, it could also lead to just a lot of issues with evaluating your own talent, because you mentioned it. They need to find receivers that are going to step up. These guys are probably going to look amazing in practice going against if they get that same version of Sneed and these guys. So it could be bad. And Callahan, the jury's still out. We'll see, because the roster is still shaky. It's been going downhill there ever since Vrabel, Robinson, like all those guys on the left, and it's just not the same kind of organization at all, and not in a good way. But Houston is a team that should have been able to take more advantage of it. They really struggled last year. Ken Slowick, I thought CJ Stroud regressed. I thought he was thinking too much when he dropped back. He wasn't just drop back, hit his foot, anticipate, know where he's going. His confidence was a little all over the place. Probably his confidence in the line. And let's start with Laramie Tunsil, obviously up there in age, but is the O-line going to be better, the same, or worse without him and all these new pieces? Because on paper they have more depth, but they also lost their best lineman, and it's a new offense and just a lot of moving pieces. You got two rookie receivers, so that could add to the time that you need to be in the pocket. I mean, what is your outlook for this Houston offensive line? Because I think that's the big thing with Stroud. He has the talent otherwise.
Yeah, I don't think that we have to. I have no questions about the defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I trust the Texans defense, and you get Petrie back, who I think is just a huge piece for what they want to do. and where they really missed him down the stretch, and the defense was still really good. You added C.J. Gardner-Johnson as well in the back end, which I think
it could be elite. It could be like one of those. It could be elite. Like it could take one of those steps up to that. You know how Philly kind of did it. Yeah.
I have zero questions on the defense. Health, like that's where are you staying healthy? That's with every team. So yeah, it all comes down to the offense. I think Stroud. I mean, yeah, he regressed a bit. Everything around him, he's done no favors. Right, the offensive line got no protection. The running game, the play calling was all bad. So now, the receiving situation wasn't great once Dell went down. You just had Nico, and then who else are we throwing to? So yeah, you go out, you get some young receivers. It's a shame what happened with Tank Dell, but this is all going to come down to. There's two things that I'm watching. It's the offensive line, and then the coaching changes. Right, so you have new coordinator, new offensive line coach. So I think the play calling should, in theory, be better, especially on early downs. What is this new offensive line coach going to do with this group? But yeah, it's basically a new group, right? Like they got no more Tunsil, no more Green, no more Mason. You add 5 vets. You draft Ursery. You bring in, none of the names are going to wow you, like Robinson, Tomlinson, Andrews. Can Ursery give you anything as a rookie? How is this all going to come together? Because that's going to make or break the Texans season and determine they could still go to the play. Because last year was a disaster and they still made the playoffs. They could still win this division, but then your ceiling is capped if this offensive line isn't fixed, and you're probably going on the road. You're not hosting a playoff game, or I should say you're hosting if you win your division, but you're not hosting deep into the playoffs. You're going on the road and that offensive line isn't fixed. Like, you're probably not getting through the AFC. So yeah, that's what I'm watching. The new coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball. And then how does this offensive line come together? I don't have the answers yet. I don't know. I mean, to me, it can't be worse than last year. But it's not like you look at this group and you have an overwhelming sense of confidence on how it's going to come together. But that's what I'm watching for sure, because that's the biggest question mark for the Texans. And I'm not fully sold that they did enough, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a really good point, and you're kind of alluding to what I think has been a big theme in this division, and just more so than in previous years. I'm starting to really evaluate front offices and GMs this year and look at some of the things they're doing with their rosters, because I think last year in particular with the Eagles, it just really showed what a ceiling season from a roster building perspective can do for you. And I think there are a lot of kind of question marks about some of the moves that these teams are making and their philosophies. Like, I think Houston's doing it right this year, trying to raise the floor and letting CJ Stroud take care of the ceiling. But at the same time, they do have some kind of patterns showing up where, like, are they just trying to recreate like the Dell and that offense with Noel and Higgins was like for all the hype, he kind of plays like he could be like another Quentin Johnston too. Like, that's the floor with him, because he's not really he wasn't a great man beater consistently, press beater. He's more of a zone guy. And then you keep relying on these, you have Mixon. You have to use him too much because you don't trust the rest of the guys in your backfield. And you add Nick Chubb. You change the offense, and Damian Pierce, who was the productive back, couldn't even grasp the new scheme. Like, some of the things that are going on there, I just wonder if it's more than just, okay, the offensive line was bad. Like, they might not be maximizing. So we'll see if this year it's going to be different. But like you said, the jury's out on if it's going to be better. I think defensively it's been great, and maybe that's more Ryan's. But the offense, I don't know. I don't know if they're truly maximizing what they got going on, but they could.
I agree, and you're on Stroud on a rookie contract. Like, this is
go
when you should be doing it. That this season, the next couple seasons is when you really have to go for it. You got to take advantage of your division. You got to take advantage of Stroud on a rookie contract. So yeah, I mean, like the tight end room could be better.
But that's another thing. It's kind of like the NBA team who builds a rotation with like big men that they have to take out. because they can't shoot free throws or they can't shoot threes. It's like Dalton Schultz. Remember in the playoff game, they didn't want to. It's like they didn't. Every time they had to put him on the field, it was like, oh my god, like they just did not want to play him because he's terrible blocker. So I mean, does Stover step up?
And everything that teams are doing now is like it's geared more towards okay, hey, sometimes can we get two backs on the field? Can we get two tight ends on the field? That's becoming more difficult for like this is the cat and mouse of the offense and defense progressions and trends in the NFL, and you're seeing teams with more versatility and flexibility on both sides of the ball. And I'm not sure the Texans have that. It's just like, hey, Stroud, go out there and figure it out with a shaky offensive line, and it's not sure that's the best approach. But all right, let's transition to the AFC East. We'll start with the clear favorites, the Buffalo Bills, who will be on Hard Knocks. So you'll get a little deeper look and more interesting lens into what's going on up there in Western New York. I mean, for me, when I look at the Bills, the Cook contract situation is interesting to watch and monitor, see what goes on there. But I think there's just two clear position groups that you have to watch with Buffalo. But before I say mine, curious to get like, we know who the Bills are. What are they? They've won double-digit games the last 5 years, I think. So, like, heavy favorites in the division. They're going to be there in the end, barring, a catastrophe injury situation, a catastrophic injury situation. Maybe like Josh Allen goes down, obviously, but they should be there in the end. What are you watching to see if this team can finally break through? Like, what needs to come together? What are the most interesting position battles that you're watching in camp?
I wonder if Josh Allen's just so good that they don't realize that this still might not be the best idea. Like they've never fully figured out the offense and the receivers and the interplay. They had Diggs, but then Gabe Davis was like a flawed number 2 receiver. Yeah, he was good as a run blocker, but he's not a guy that you would necessarily want out there for 90% of the snaps. He's more of a number 4 kind of situational guy. Then they decide, okay, we're just going to go away from that. We're going to feed everybody. And sure, that's great. And it worked. And I like the fact that they're not going crazy with, spending money at the receiver position. They're kind of, but at the same time, you still question some of the evaluations, right? Because you probably hung on to Diggs a little too long at the time, or you definitely weren't getting the most out of him toward the end. And then you still haven't really fully utilized Kincaid in the right way, or, kind of gotten him to do what he needs to do. I heard, there's weight issues and he's not blocking. But it's like Josh Allen is so good that at some point you got to, I think they might have had it right the first time when, remember that I think they brought in like a John Brown and he was and then Diggs and it's just more higher profile guys at receiver. That's what I'm kind of looking at because they've been so run heavy since Brady took over in the middle of the 2023 season. And you're playing with fire, if Cook misses time or, this is Ray Davis is completely different running back. Ty Johnson can make plays in the pass game, but you're putting so much on Josh Allen once again and his rushing touchdowns and they're relying on him more and more and that running game more and more. And it's just kind of odd because he's so good as a thrower that I just wonder if they're playing it a little too safe. That's my concern with Buffalo. It's that they might be capping their own ceiling and just not realizing it because they're so happy they could just breeze through the season and win 12 games every year. But I mean, what are your thoughts on this Bills team? And
yeah, I'm not worried about the offense. I mean, the one position group that I am watching, the offensive line looks good again. Allen, it's obviously a beast. You want to watch the Cook situation, but I want to watch the receiver group, like you said, and that includes the tight ends. What can Josh Palmer bring? Does Keon Coleman take a leap? When Shakir, when healthy, I think is a good piece that you can use, and I mean, especially against zone.
It can't be man though.
Yeah, that's true. That's something they got to figure out. But I'm not worried about the offense. The offense is going to be elite. This team's goal should be to get the 1 seed. With their schedule and their division, they got to finally get the 1 seed. I mean, this is a team that's gone they've lost one game in regulation at home in the regular season over the past 3 seasons. It's a weird game against Denver by 2 points. I know they've lost a couple in the playoffs at home. I think they're 4-2 at home, but this is a dominant team at home. You got to get home field advantage with this schedule this year, the way that it breaks, getting all your tough games at home in this division. Can they get the 1 seed? That pass catching room, just can it hit its ceiling? But I think more importantly, it's the defense. And last year they were, plus 24 turnover margin. That masks a lot of issues. That's the best margin in 12 years. That extreme fumble luck. If you go back and you look at some of the teams that have had a turnover margin at that level, you can expect some major regression. So how do you make up for that? Well, the secondary has to be better. And that's my biggest question on this team and what I'm watching on Hard Knocks and in camp. So, like, Maxwell Hairston, the rookie, what can he give you at corner? Obviously dealing with some other stuff as well. The safety room, can Cole Bishop step up? Because I'm just not sold on Hamlin and Rapp being the answer on the back end. So, yeah, the secondary, and to a lesser extent, the wide receiver rooms, the 2 positions that I'm watching. But that secondary needs to be a whole lot better because it's the defense. And they were able to mask it last year until the playoffs. It's the defense that's let them down in their playoff losses. So that's what I'm watching. Because last year they were number 1 in turnovers per drive, 31st in punts forced per drive, number 24 in yards per drive. So, like, this is a team that needs to get better on the defensive side. There's a reason they went out. They're 4 of their 5 free agent signings. Their first 5 draft picks on the defensive side of the ball. How do these new pieces, how does the secondary come together? Because it's all about the defense this year. As long as the offense stays healthy, they're going to be fine. But the goal should be to get the 1 seed. In order to do that, I think you just need some improvement in the secondary, because if that turnover regression hits like a brick, the defense is going to have to pull its weight. And it starts, I think, in the secondary. Moving on to let's go to the Patriots. They're getting a lot of hype. The win total increases, as drastic as you'll see from last year to this. I think that their hope is, can they be the Commanders of last year? Like, that's the optimistic view, right? Like, you had an unserious coaching staff. You overhaul that. You overhaul everything. Now, it's not a rookie quarterback, but it's a second-year quarterback that showed promise. You went out, you spent a lot of money, brought in a lot of new pieces, and will that translate to better results on the field and in the win column? What are your thoughts on the Patriots, and what are you looking at as they head into camp here?
Mike Vrabel's going to win them some games or keep them in games they probably wouldn't otherwise be in. The division's getting worse. So I think they're already the second best team in this division. I thought they were pretty much since even heading into the draft. So it's no surprise that they're kind of going a little more aggressively now. And, you mentioned it. If you could take advantage of those rookie quarterbacks on their rookie deals, it's a big positive. I think this may be a little bit of an opening, because you're looking at a situation where, going back to Buffalo, what you said, the offense is going to be fine, but they can't beat man coverage. So you get to the playoffs. If you play Baltimore, Kansas City, I still think they're capped. So, but if you get them out of the way, it's the Patriots. I think they're the team that capitalizes more so than the Dolphins. And it was just, so many things are wrong. And I just wonder if they're learning the wrong lessons, because Vrabel's good, but it's like, he's a retread, or he's a guy who's like, okay, it worked. Like, he was here before, let's bring him back in. Finally give him, what he, like, a lot of people thought he was supposed to have that job from the jump. Then you go, but you also bring back Daniels. You kind of got lucky with Drake May, kind of fell into your lap. So, and he's really the true bright spot. You always have had trouble developing receivers in the McDaniel offense. Stephon Diggs, I think, he's going late enough in fantasy that I'm willing to take flyers on him, but that's a curious signing given, that you really, this is really important, like in Drake May's development. Probably the worst receiving corps in the league last year. Stephon Diggs, very low floor for that kind of money. So I just wonder if this whole division is kind of such a shit show that we're overrating Buffalo, and then probably at least the market, I think now. And I was high on New England from a while ago, but I think we're probably overrating them too. I mean, I think the biggest positive for them is Raybon, and they're going to probably do some things on defense that probably play above themselves. But I think it's going to take more time. I still think this offense could be the Drake May propping it up yet again. It's still a shaky offense with it could go bad real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Patriots are a bit overvalued in the market, but there's also a lot of variance in them. I mean, they could have 10 new starters across the board this year. They definitely addressed some of their holes. I'm curious. The offensive line was so bad. I mean, it was historically bad last year that a lot of those guys they were relying on are now deep into the depth chart or gone. The left side of the offensive line, could you have an all rookie left side of the offensive line? That's something that I'm watching and how that comes together. With Campbell at left tackle, potentially Wilson as well. So I'm curious to see how the offensive line comes together, because that just really crushed them so many times. They couldn't do anything. And then, Diggs, what kind of ceiling does he still have? What can Williams give you at receiver? Because their pass catchers have just been so bad the past couple of years. So if Diggs still has that next gear, which I have questions about, if Williams can really contribute and that offensive line comes together, right, with your new additions, the left side comes together, then this offense has something. And they obviously added a bunch on the defensive side. So you bring in Landry, Davis, Milton Williams. So there's definitely a lot more talent, and I think the coaching staff is more serious. And they're going to be favored in 11 games. They had bad injury luck last year. The schedule's going to be a lot easier this year. So there's a lot of things to like. There's a lot of injury watch for a lot of players on this team as well that I'm keeping an eye on. But I do think they're a tad overvalued, but definitely an intriguing team to watch. You have Drake May, showed a lot of promise in a horrendous situation. How much better does that situation get? And then how much better can he get in his second year? And can he avoid, sort of a sophomore slump? But really interesting team to watch. A lot of differing opinions on the Patriots. Let's move on to the Dolphins. You and I are pretty low on the Dolphins this year. There's just a lot of holes here. I mean, the secondary is yikes. I know Ramsey's not around. You went out and got Fitzpatrick. He's on the decline. Do you need Jason Marshall to start and be good at corner? Your rookie? You might. The offensive line, you need Paul to hit at left tackle. You might a rookie at left guard. Offensive line, a lot of questions there. It's like bad offensive line, potentially really bad secondary. That's scary. How can you make up for it? I mean, I don't know. I think this team is in trouble. I mean, Phillips and Chubb, how healthy are they? And when can they contribute? Can they get back to the players that they were? That'll help, which, has a front seven that has a lot of potential there. Because the offense, if the offensive line isn't going to be there, then you got to worry about Tua staying healthy. Is Tyreek the same player that he once was? Because without Tyreek, bad offensive line and Tyreek not garnering the same respect that he once did, you saw what it did to the offense last year. And it's just not the same unit. I don't know. I think this team's in trouble. I think this team has been built so poorly, managed so poorly. And if you look at Tyreek last year, 1.8 yards per route run. 2 years before that, he was at 3.25, 3.75. Pretty big drop off. He's not getting any younger. But yeah, I mean, the secondary's in trouble. The offensive line's in trouble. I'm pretty low on this team. I'll go to you. Do you have anything to add? And what do you think could happen for this team to reach its ceiling and get to a next level?
I mean, I just think it continues the theme of kind of the enshittification of the AFC East, largely due to what I'm starting to think is, this day and age, it's easier than ever. We all work remote to some capacity. And I just wonder if that's kind of affecting the way these like head coaches and front offices are kind of working. Because it almost feels like they're not on the same page, and like you have a good coach, but then you're questioning some of the GM moves or whatnot. Because I think Miami, to your point, McDaniel is looking worse and worse, but a lot of the moves Greer's made have been it just doesn't make sense. And I don't think we're ever getting that offense back, first of all, because what you've done in Miami is you've essentially said, okay, as long as we have Tua Tagovailoa as our quarterback, we gotta get the ball out of his hands. We can't have him sitting back in the pocket. So you're never getting that offense back from 2 years ago where Tyreek was averaging 3.7 yards a route, because Tua was near the top of the league in ADOT, but you need time for that. Like you can't just drop back off the back foot and just throw it up. So what did you do? Your best offensive lineman retired. Your offensive line has been deteriorating. You make a trade that I don't know. Like your relations with your players seem like Tyreek Hill didn't want to play for you last year. Johnny Smith didn't want to play for you this year because he felt disrespected. And so now
tweet. Did you see that Mostert tweet?
I did not see the Mostert tweet. What did he tweet?
He tweeted out, hot take, be a Pro Bowler on the Dolphins, get treated like shit. Happy for my guys, though. Go ball out. This was when the tweet about the Steelers acquiring Johnny Smith and Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, listen, the Steelers, for whatever you want to say about the Steelers, like, I'd take that trade like 10 times. Like, I just don't know what the Dolphins are. Like, the Dolphins, to me, the biggest, because you can kind of use context clues. You're such a small sample in the NFL that you kind of have to say, okay, well, if guys had success in the past, maybe had something, kind of like we're looking at Liam Cohn, just, okay, let's kind of grasp onto something. It just seems like there's no vision of how to truly excel anymore in Miami, including McDaniel. It just seems like he's kind of tethered to making it work as best he can with Tua getting the ball out super quick, and nothing's getting fixed. You're losing skill guys. Your offensive line's getting worse. You're never going to now you're not even unlocking Waddle to his full potential either, because you had this offense, and it wasn't just the time, but it was it was like mid-season, what was it, 23 or something like that. Once defenses started to figure out where to put guys in the throwing lanes for Tua, it's just nothing was ever the same since. It wasn't just simply like, okay, Mahomes with the two deep shell things. It was like, this has just been a bad offense. It hasn't been efficient. Tyreek Hill's probably the least of their issues. I mean, guys just aren't playing up to their potential, and then when guys do, they're off the team.
But him not being as elite, definitely.
Yeah, it hurts.
Hurts
and Johnny Smith was elite last year, so the fact that you just chased him out of town.
You got Darren Waller now.
Yeah, of all people, why would you sign a guy who has commitment issues? He literally said the Giants made me lead block, and I knew right then and there I was going to retire. And then he dropped. He was like in the position to catch a game winner, but like he had already decided he was going to retire by then. And this is the guy that essentially
it's good for his rap career going down to Miami.
Man,
right.
This is why we're not concerned about the Bills, and why people are probably overrating the Patriots, because look at the bottom of the division.
Well, we didn't mention the Jets yet. I won't spend too much time on them. Sorry, Jets fans. But how does this thing work for the Jets this year in terms of exceeding their expectations, flirting with a wild card? Will have to happen. The offensive line has to be really good. They're going to have to run the ball. So the offensive line is going to have to be really good. So who wins that center battle between Tippmann and Myers? Does the Fashanu, Membu tackle duo come together, and can they be elite? Because they need to run the ball. The offensive line needs to be great. Fields is going to hold the ball too long. Like they need to. Who's the wide receiver too? Like they need someone to step up and help out Garrett Wilson, because in order for this team to get where they want to get, it's run the ball, and then their defense has to be really good. And I have questions on that side of the ball as well. I mean, Jermaine Johnson, his health, that's something to keep an eye on. And then I'm just really worried about the cornerbacks after Sauce Gardner now. And I can tell you as a Ravens fan, Brandon Stevens isn't the answer. So it's the defense has to they really got to hit the defense. They got to stay healthy. They got to find a consistent pass rush. The corner group and it's just the whole secondary in general outside of Gardner has to come together in the offensive line. Like that's what I'm watching. This team's going to have to run the ball to be successful. A lot of questions on the Jets, obviously, with one of the lowest win totals in the league. Any quick thoughts on the Jets before we hit the AFC West?
Yeah, it's another one of these teams where whatever positives are probably just going to be completely outweighed by the incompetent owner and
they're run so bad. I mean, they have what, a $50 million dead cap hit for Rodgers this year and next, and then you paid Fields $40 million.
It's
absurd.
Thought
Fields was like that is.
And then you didn't get Ben Johnson, so you go get his lackey, and like I mean, I'm not to Tanner Entry might transform the offense, but I mean you didn't give him much to work with, and then so he's just going back like the guy I keep hearing is making the most noise in camp is Josh Reynolds, and that's he's a guy that was there on Detroit, wasting away with like the likes of DJ Chark, and it's just like. Is it the front office? Is it the coaching staff? Who has the most input? But it's the meld is not there, and you got guys just reverting to what they know, and
it starts with the front office there.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
look, they were bad. They were 3-7 one-score games. They were horrible in like discipline stats. That's the coaching with penalties. They had horrible field goal luck on both sides. Like Ulbrich, Hackett, Downing, it was a disaster. So like, there's some upside there, but. They're going to have to run the ball with Fields, and the defense has to be good. And I'm not sure that both of those things, their defense, their offensive line, are elite enough to compensate for some of the issues they have elsewhere. So it might be a long season for the Jets, but there's a lot of change with the coaching staff, so we'll see what they can do for sure. Let's move on to the AFC West. What do you got there?
Yeah, I'm glad to get out of the East, honestly. Like that,
I got to raise your spirit.
Yeah, it just makes me mad. I mean, I love me some Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs. They're always fun, regardless. But let's start with Rashee Rice. Just kind of finding out that his legal situation is coming to a close. So suspension for him. General outlook on the passing game overall. Like, what do you think? Do enough things that need to go right to truly kind of get this team back to being a multiple pass offense that can still attack more downfield as well? Like, Rice, is he going to get, 2-game suspension, or is it going to be something more significant? Jalen Moore, is he gonna win a job and unseat Taylor? And that probably depends on the rookie Simmons winning the left tackle job. And then is left guard still going to be a black hole and invite him? Is any running back going to average more 4 yards a carry? Like their top three were all, sub 4 yard carry guys last year. So defenses don't have to respect the run game at all. Like, are enough of these things going to fall into place for the Chiefs to kind of get back to it? Or is it going to be another one of these years where they're just kind of, playing with fire?
Yeah, I mean, but maybe we just like the Chiefs and Steelers are just always going to win their one possession games. It makes more sense for the Chiefs. I mean, you got Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, great kicker, but they're 42-16 since 2019 in one possession games, 72% win percentage. Last year they went 11-0, and a lot of the reason that they were in all those close games is just the offense. It wasn't explosive, and they're just going to be in these fights down to the wire. They can't really pull away. And a lot of the issues have been on the offensive line. And that's the number one thing that I'm watching. And the Chiefs are going to be there in the end, but and you even saw this in the Super Bowl. You got one of the best centers in the NFL, but his performance suffered when, you kick Tooney out to tackle, the left guard became worse, and your center gets hurt, and then everything is worse. So yeah, did they fix the offensive line? So it's Simmons or Moore at left tackle. And then is it Sumateo or Caliendo at left guard? How does that come together? Because if it does, then your center can do even more. And then I think Mahomes having more time. I mean, there's still some questions at the right tackle spot as well, but that's just got to be more consistent there. But it's all about the left side of the offensive line. I think if they stay healthy with their weapons, they can be a bit more explosive. They're going to need to be. I mean, they were as bad as you can get in that department. So yeah, that's the main thing I'm watching with the Chiefs. You know, they're going to be there in the end. But it's the offensive line for me, left side.
Yeah. And I think I would also kind of add to that, you say the offensive line, but we know Mahomes is going to be fine at the end of the day, one way or another. But I really think that it would benefit the Chiefs to not have a joke of a running game. And that's the one area where they just seem to have kind of not really figured it out. And, they had Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator for years.
And the run game is so basic. It's just like,
we know Andy Reid doesn't like to run, but this is a situation where it's like, okay, Andy Reid is great at 99 things out of 100. The one thing is he doesn't really care about the run game. So like if I'm Veach, I gotta kind of help him out there. I can't have Kareem Hunt, Pacheco, Carson Steele get Pirine was on the roster last year. This year, it's like you kick the tires on Mitchell. You took another 7th rounder's already making noise. You still have Hunt on. It's like at some point, I think you got to kind of figure this thing out. You whiffed on your first rounder with Edwards-Helaire, and this is a situation where your Mahomes is so good, Andy Reid is so good, some of the other talent is so good but are you holding yourself back by just not doing some of the simple things right? Because Matt Nagy has been back in the fold more prominently, especially these last 2 years. And it's kind of been going downhill the more involved Nagy has gotten, and I mean, sometimes you just wonder who's making what decisions, it's just, there's certain things with the Chiefs that you already knew this, offensive line was important, and there's still a lot of correlation, and one injury could really, I think, still kind of set you back and put you in a similar spot, maybe even worse, because Tooney, was at times your best lineman. So that's kind of my issue with the Chiefs, is that in a lot of these teams, I just wonder if they're truly maximizing their ceiling, or if these things are gonna bite them again. And they didn't learn anything last year, because they won. They lose one game in the regular season somehow. I don't love that that this is still a question mark. It's not that hard to figure it out. But let's go to Denver, because talk about moving pieces. I mean, I like what Denver's doing, but I wonder exactly when the offense is, how much of a jump can the offense make? Because you hit on Knicks, you got a lot out of, you definitely got a lot more out of that offense than I think the talent level at times, but it was also a shit show at times with the running game. And so is shit figured out, or are we just assembling a bunch of guys and hoping somebody sticks? Because Evan Ingram's 31, he's coming off a career low in yardage. He's not going to give you blocking, and you seem to be the run game is still an issue. So it's is he going to just be a slot receiver? But then, you added Bryant to the fold. So Vele, is he still in the plan? Mims, he's not really a true receiver. What's the plan for him? I like the fact that they're getting all these pieces, but then you go and sign J.K. Dobbins after, Javonte Williams didn't work out. I just wonder, are we taking one step forward, 2 steps back? But I do like the fact that they're adding more speed, and it's not just Mims. But what are your thoughts? Because I think it's going to come down to these skill guys and Bo Nix. I think the defense is going to be good, and the line is, and Peyton can kind of figure it out otherwise. But these skill guys have to kind of hit. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, the 3 most interesting pieces that I'm watching for the Broncos this year are all rookies who I think could contribute. One on the defensive side in Barron, cornerback from Texas. Curious to see how they use him and how frequently as well. I think he could be a good player. And then just another piece in that secondary. So curious to see what they do with him, but I'm not as worried about the defense, which obviously has a ton of talent. It's the offense and 2 pieces that could really raise this team's ceiling are 2 rookies, and that's RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant. And they have the potential to help plug two of the main issues on this offense, and that's the running game and, kind of wide receiver help on the outside. So those three rookies, I'm really curious to watch in camp and how they progress and how much they're going to use them. I think that's the most interesting thing I'm watching. And then obviously, Bo Nix year 2, does he, we got to remember that, think about CJ Stroud, he's going to be a top 3 quarterback now. And Bo Nix was nowhere close to as good as Stroud was in his first year. So does Nix take the next step? Does he take a big step back? He kind of gets his hand held in that offense, and they have a really good defense. He's not going to have to do a ton. But obviously watching his progression will be key. But I'm most curious to watch those 3 rookies and how they can have an impact in year 1, in Bryant, Harvey, and Barron.
Yeah, it's interesting that there seems to be this trend where coaches are, and maybe front offices are kind of purposely building rosters around this spread it around approach nowadays. Maybe it's because, just trying not to put too much into one basket when you feel confident in your quarterback. But at the same time, you have the other side of it where you see a guy like Howie Roseman, that offense helping Jalen Hurts, elite skill guys all over the place. And, it works out. So I just, I almost feel like with Denver, they're just trying to assemble so many guys, but is there a cohesive plan? Like are we still going to be giving like every one that's not Sutton 50% of snaps and letting it shake out? Because I almost feel like with the running game, it's like they're still trying to purposely have a committee. I feel like at wide receiver, it's like Troy Franklin's running with the starters. So, and Mims is like, what is he? Like, it's just like there's a lot of guys where I feel like you want to sub guys in every play. Sean Payton loves to do that, but I just wonder if that's ultimately going to lead to success, or if that really maximizes guys' talent or in the way you build a roster. So I think Denver's ceiling is high, but I'm just curious to kind of see how we're going into like a little bit of a new age. People are trying some new things, or just making new mistakes often with the way they're building rosters. Who we got next? Okay, so the Chargers, and this is another one of those teams. Justin Herbert, great season, and then just collapsed in the playoffs. You could kind of see it coming. Not much at receiver last year outside of McConkey. Did they do enough? We heard Mike Williams just retired. Trey Harris, I'm kind of optimistic about him, but rookie ex-receiver might, there's always a lot of downside. And then I think QJ kind of depends on how well Harris does, because ideally, I think QJ's at this point, you can't use him as an X. I think he's got to be a Z, and you got to kind of scheme him some things to have him be a factor. And then the tight ends, I mean, you have 3 tight ends, or do you have no tight ends? So, and then you took a running back in the first round. He's great, but did you need to do that? Or is this just like Greg Roman doubling down? What are your thoughts here on the Chargers? Because this division is suddenly getting, I mean, it was always competitive, but I mean, even the Raiders could be respectable and competent this year too. So, have the Chargers kind of done enough? Are they making the right moves? They nailed that McConkey pick, but ultimately, what do you see for them?
Yeah, Trey Harris, I think, is huge. He has to be a high impact guy right off the bat. I'm curious to see if Gatson, the other rookie, if he sees the field as he's kind of like a wide receiver tight end.
Stone Smart role, I would think.
Yeah, but it's all, Trey Harris has to be good here. And then, I mean, the Chargers want to run the ball. Najee Harris, I know he was in a fireworks accident. I don't know when he's going to be available. So you're probably going to need Hampton to be productive right away. So those are 2 rookies that I think are going to be really important at the skill positions for the Chargers, because they need wide receiver help. And Hampton, I think, has to be the guy. On defense, there's a lot of holes that I see on this defense. The defensive line, the edge rush, the secondary doesn't give me a lot of confidence. Can they get what can they get from guys like Caldwell and Kennard? They're rookies. Does Colson take that next step at linebacker and take that position and run with it? So yeah, I'll be watching the defense closely because there's a lot of holes. Tupelotu taking over a starting role. What can he give you off the edge? I think you're going to need something from him. The offensive line looks set. I know that like Bozeman and Johnson, like the order of them, like one who's going to play center and who's going to play left guard is in question. But it's really like what can Hampton and Harris give you as rookies? I think like you're going to need them right off the bat. And then on the defensive side of the ball, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered that I'll be watching closely. So, yeah, good staff, but this roster still has a lot of holes.
Yeah, it's another one of these situations where it's generally a good coaching staff, but you just kind of wonder, are they in the room together all the time? And are these some, because like the Chargers are kind of setting themselves up where they probably still would function best as a run heavy team that plays with a lead, and Herbert's still, explosive enough. You can, as long as he keeps you guessing, you can kind of do your thing. But I mean, that playoff game was disconcerting, and I think you have like things could just unravel very quickly if, like you said, Harris doesn't hit, because you still don't have like a real go-to guy at tight end. You have 3 tight ends, which makes it harder for a guy like Gadsden. Then you because you want to be a run heavy team, you're not going to always prioritize, these the receivers. Yeah. And then like you have, and the thing that gives me confidence with that, hopefully Harris is as good as I think he is they did nail that McConkey pick. They absolutely nailed it. And the one thing, a lot of people are excited about Higgins too, and I'm optimistic for kind of the same reasons, because like I think you can play him off the line of scrimmage, but he kind of plays a little different. But Harris is like a true, like he can actually beat man and beat press coverage. Or he has more of a track record doing so in the past, and that's going to be huge for the Chargers. But it's still Greg Roman doing some weird stuff at times. Like just there's so much fullback going on. There's so much like gadgetry with guys like Davis and like Rager, and it's just there's just too many plays going on non-entities, I think, and this offense is still dangerously close to that kind of happening again. And there's a lot there, but there's also a risk for kind of going all in on like running back and receiver early in the draft when not necessarily the positions that you need to do that at. So I think there's a wide range of outcomes, but the Chargers had an easy schedule last year. Let's not forget that. Like that, they really ate with that easy ass schedule, and they could kind of play the way they wanted to play. This year, it might be a little tougher. They're not gonna be able to dictate as much. So Chargers, I'm just gonna be watching them close, seeing how it all kind of shakes out. But the Raiders, this is a talk about kind of retreads. I mean, you're bringing back Carroll and Chip Kelly, odd couple. You draft the running back in the first round. He's great, but just funny how you're doing like all the old school things in Vegas. I guess my question always starts with the defense on this team, because their offense probably is going to be better just going to a competent quarterback in Geno, and you got Bowers now and Genty, but defensively, do they have enough to not be terrible? Is it going to be decent? Is it like where are they defensively in a division that with Holmes and Herbert and in this Bronco offense?
Yeah, offensively, what I'm curious to watch there, the defense has many more questions, but because they still need some wide receiver help. So can Thornton, who's getting rave reviews so far, or Betch, can they? And then obviously you bring in Genty. So watching those rookies will be interesting. But on the defensive side of the ball, there's a lot of questions at every level. And like Christian Wilkins, when's he going to be healthy? And if he's not healthy, can you get something from your rookies there? Hemingway, Big East. You're going to need those guys to step up if Wilkins isn't healthy. And then in the secondary, at linebacker, it doesn't look great. The secondary doesn't look great. I mean, outside of Max Crosby, if Christian Wilkins isn't healthy, it's like, who do you trust on this defense? So they're going to need, I think they're going to need Darian Porter to be really good as a rookie corner. That's a lot to ask because who's the best corner on this team right now on the outside? Is it Eric Stokes, who's horrendous? Like this secondary could be really bad. This defense could be really bad and hold them back ultimately. So I think one of the most important pieces on this defense, like I don't know who else can raise the ceiling. You get Wilkins healthy. It's got to be like Porter being like a lockdown corner as a rookie and like being a revelation, like a Sauce Gardner type, and allow you to do so many more things. That's a lot to ask. That's doesn't happen frequently. So yeah, it could be a long year for this defense once again, but the offense should be much more serious with Geno Smith at quarterback. And then, who they have running the show now. It should be a much more serious operation, but the defense could ultimately just be their downfall. But they should be more competitive on a weekend basis. Can they get stops? Not sure.
Yeah, it's like you're canceling out the competence of your offense with this what looks like it's going to be a miserable defense. And it's just interesting to me because yet another organization that year after year, doesn't matter who's in charge doing what, they just can't figure it out defensively. They just can't really get over the hump and do it for any consistent amount of time. So probably the same.
I love Patrick Graham. He gets nothing to work with, by the way. Like, I just love some of the things he does schematically. But this guy, I mean, the cards that he's dealt on a year in basis, it's there's only so much you can do from a scheme perspective. But
I will say, one of the things that is interesting to me, you mentioned the receivers really quick to go back to them, because it looks to me like you're going to be playing quite a few game scripts from a trailing position. And that's another thing that it's a little bit questionable how Brock Bowers he's tight end, but he's essentially a glorified slot receiver, right? Like he doesn't need to be in line. You got Mayer there. So you got Myers. So it just was interesting that Best was a choice. And I like him. I like some of his film, but I just think, I don't know if he was a fit. And it's already, you're kind of seeing that in camp where Thornton is the starter and Tucker is the starter. And Myers has kicked into the slot in 3 wide sets. And they're already kind of having issues finding a role for Beck. And then it just, I don't know if it made sense. It's like you got too many slot receivers again. And then
you probably want to go more 2 tight end sets with this team.
Yeah, but then Thornton is he's like a super. Like, what do you get? Like 9 balls last year or something. Like, he's a guy. A lot of it's going to be wind sprints. So you're kind of buying into this slot receiver notion, but then you're not even starting one of the slot receivers at where he could be getting valuable reps. So I mean, it's just I don't know. I think it's gonna be just like the defense is canceling it out. And Geno Smith, I mean, he's had some weird stretches of struggles, red zone-ish and things like that. So I think they're too much in the past for the Raiders, man. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it would be interesting to watch though. A lot more interesting than last year.
I would like to see Chip Kelly, what he's doing.
Yeah, let's move on to the AFC North to wrap up the AFC. Start with my beloved Baltimore Ravens. Look, Lamar Jackson, obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. His cap hit the next 3, 43, 75, 75. So when you have a quarterback that's not on a rookie deal, getting paid a lot of money, how do you maintain that level of excellence? You've seen this with the Chiefs, the Eagles. You got to draft well. And the Ravens have consistently done that. That's how you have to plug in your roster holes. And you have to be smart. And the Ravens are one of the more intelligent organizations. So what are some of their holes this year? Well, with Washington going down with an Achilles injury, so is that safety? So Malachi Starks, what can he give you at safety? And then your edge rush, it's still a little questionable. You get a steal in the draft, and I think in Mike Green, what can he give you in his rookie year? Those are 2 of the key guys on defense that I'm watching because, look, the secondary on paper is one of the best in the NFL. 5 former first-round draft picks are starting. But the depth isn't great. And you got, Jair Alexander, how many games is he going to play? Awuzie, how many games is he going to play if you need him? These are guys that the last 3 years, what have they played? Probably half the games. And then just like if Starks doesn't hit at safety or really struggles, the depth at safety without Washington is very questionable. So this secondary needs to stay healthy. But I think if Green and Starks can hit right away, sky's the limit for this defense. You have Lamar Jackson in the offense. There's not too many questions there. The one thing that I'm watching that I haven't had to watch in a while, it's kicker. Got a kicker battle. It should be Loop, who they drafted, but he got Hoyland as well as in there. Tucker fell off, so I'm not like, oh my God, there's no more Justin Tucker. Around the last 2 years, he's fallen off, but there was a long stretch where Tucker came out and you just knew. And I never had that anxiety. You knew he was going to make it. Now, the Ravens they never can win close games. Now, if you have a kicker question, that's something I'm watching. How does Loop look? But I think Green and Starks are the 2 key guys on this defense that can raise them another level. Do you have any quick thoughts on the Ravens?
Best team in the AFC, smartest team in the AFC, in my opinion. I think that the key for them is when you talk about some of your concerns with them in the secondary and whatnot, the thing is they have contingency plans. You're like, okay, well, if this guy doesn't hit, but they still have this guy. And Woozier, what is it, like a fourth corner? And most importantly, you have guys that can play man coverage when you need to. And I think that's just something that some of those other offenses with elite quarterbacks like the Chiefs and Bills, I know zone is the predominant coverage in the NFL, but we see this year after year where in certain spots, it's just defenses get emboldened to just man up until you can stop it. And if it's late in the year and you're down a couple of linemen or a receiver or two, it's going to be tough. And so I think Baltimore is just in a good position, even if there are questions with that. I think that gives them an edge over their
they just need the secondary to stay healthy because you need the flexibility of Humphrey and Hamilton.
Yes.
And their versatility. And if someone goes down and then you got to lock one of them in somewhere and say you got to move Humphrey outside or something. And then we saw what difference it made when Humphrey went into the slot predominantly and then Hamilton dropped back more, and then they changed the communication. But yeah, the roster's loaded. We're kind of nitpicking here, but I'm just watching Starks, Green, kicking battle. Ravens are obviously going to be in the mix when it's all said and done. Moving on to the Bengals. Talk about a poorly run organization. They're at the top of the list. What's going to go on with Trey Hendrickson? I don't know, but Watt getting his deal, which I wouldn't have paid him that much money, but that's not going to help matters for the Bengals. This is a team that without Hendrickson on the field the last 2 years, they were dead last in the NFL in almost any single pass rating pressure stat across the board. It's a guy who's had 17 and a half sacks back-to-back years, and their defense has still been really, really bad. It led the league in quick pressures last year, 6 more than Myles Garrett. Without him, what happens to this defense? And then you're relying on you drafted Stewart, who I didn't like that draft pick, but now he's they're talking about him going back to college. This could only happen.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Only happened to the Bengals. So this all comes down to the defense. Can Al Golden be a magician? No. There's questions all over. It would help if your rookie, your guard position gets upgraded. Can one of your rookies, Fairchild or Rivers, can they contribute this year? Knight or Carter, can they help on the defensive side of the ball? There's just so many questions on this defense. And then if you don't have Hendrickson, I don't know how they're getting stops. And if you're a Bengals fan, you root for. Can Burrow finally be healthy early in the year? That never happened. So that's something to watch in camp. Can he be finally ready to go right away? If you're a Bengals fan this year, I don't see how the defense is going to be any good. You got to hope Al Golden is a magician. You figure out something. You get Hendrickson. You figure out something with him. and then you just win one possession. You go like what were the Vikings last year were like 9-1 in one possession games.
Yeah.
The Chiefs obviously were 11-0. Like you just gotta hope you go like 8-2 in one possession shootouts, and then make the playoffs. And then I don't know if you have the defense to make a deep run.
This is why this is the counterpoint to, my criticism of some certain team. Like, are they truly aiming for the ceiling with every pick, or are they trying to get committee guys? It's because look at this Bengal team. I mean, they're so top heavy. And
they're 27th in offensive line spending, 25th on defense spending. It's, hey, we have Burrow and elite receivers. What else? Tell me another position group on this team that's not bottom 10. It's not the corners. It's not the safeties, the linebackers, the offensive line, the defensive line. The defensive line without Hendrickson. I mean, the rest of their position groups, you could argue they're bottom 10.
Yeah, as they've had to spend more money, it's just deteriorated because they got to that Super Bowl early on in Burrow's career, but even
that's what they can't draft. That's why. So if you have to pay a quarterback,
you got these high guys. It doesn't take a lot to
draft offensive linemen. They can't hit on their defensive guys, and then your roster falls apart because you can't fix it any other way.
And Burrow is not even like 100% locked in elite week in or year in, year out. Like the year before last, when he was just absolutely amazing, to your point, he was hurt, he was banged up. I think he ended up 6.3 yards an attempt, and then he got hurt week 10, and that was that. T. Higgins misses 5 games a year. Like this, it's just
their running game stinks, their offensive line stinks, the defense stinks.
Yeah, they're flirting with disaster across the board. So I can't take them seriously when this Ravens team is. And it's funny because the Ravens, those are the 2 games the Ravens probably lose. The games against Cincinnati somehow. But
who does Burrow kind of reminds me of? Like I think Burrow's a top 5 quarterback. I mean, easily. I mean, without a doubt. Like, is Burrow's better than him? But like, it kind of reminds me of like Rivers with the Chargers. Like just nothing.
Ooh, interesting.
Nothing around him could ever get figured out, and he had to try to do too much, and he never could reach the pinnacle.
I almost feel like it's more heartbreaking with Burrow though, because Rivers, I don't know, maybe something about his personality. He just always kind of seemed like he was just happy to be there, and like even if he never won a Super Bowl, I don't know, maybe it was just the kids or the mannerisms, or he was just like a goofball to me. So. But with Burrow, I feel like he's like kind of like inwardly stewing, and you kind of see it where he'll make these comments about, okay, we need to lock up Higgins or Chase. Like he kind of makes these selective comments, but I mean, he's got to realize that they are just putting so much on his plate. I think he's averaged like 38 plus attempts. The league leading attempts every single year. It's not just because they want to pass a lot, it's because they have to, because their defense is always crap and their run game is, it's always successful because you have Joe Burrow and Chase in Higgins, but when it is, and it's just, another one of these teams, you just wonder, are they doing their best to maximize him? Or did they just kind of feel like, okay, we got to the Super Bowl, what was it, year 2, year 3? And that would be easy to get back. Because, man,
I think I do. The reason that I think of Rivers is like I remember the 2010 Chargers, like they were like led the league in offense. They were like number 1 in yards per play, and they didn't make the playoffs. Like their special teams was a disaster. Their I think they were like second in I think their defense was actually decent that year. I don't know. Just all these things always happened to him. There was just not a lot of help. All right, let's move on to let's hit the Browns real quick before we get to the Steelers. Browns obviously. The biggest storyline is going to be the quarterback snaps. How much did the rookies get? Who's going to end up being the week 1 starter? Are we betting dinner on? You're going to be in Chicago, right? We're going to be in Chicago for week 0 of college football, 23rd. If you're in the Chicago area, more details come, but clear that off in your calendar. We'll have a bet there. I say unless you're backing off your bet, I'm betting that Flacco's the starting quarterback, week 1.
Can I interest you in a similar bet? But so the one that I've seen on the market that I think is a little more relevant is who leads the team in passing yardage when the season's over. So
no.
Because you have no confidence in Flacco, right?
Well, there's also like if the team, if it's a disaster, then it's like who knows what they're gonna do? Like they could just go to the rookies with like 7 weeks to go. You go to like see what we got with Sanders, see what we got with I don't know. I just think that Flacco is the best option right off the bat. I'm not a Pickett guy in the least. This team, so like the quarterback battle is interesting to watch. What this team has to do to be successful, their defense has to stop giving up a million explosive plays. But the defense has some potential if there's secondary rebounds. How can this offense not be a flaming disaster? Like they're going back to the old Stefanski offense, which is kind of like a trend in the NFL. So what do they need to do? They need to be able to run the ball. They're going to go more 2 tight end sets. So how does all that come together and work? Well, you need like a power running game. Well, the problem is what's going to happen with Judkins now. That was supposed to be your guy. So that could be a disaster. Does Sampson step up now? Your offensive line needs to be good. Now, there's the potential there if they stay healthy. DeJuan Jones at left tackle. Is he the guy? That's something I'm watching. Apparently he's slimmed down. Is he ready to take that over, or is it going to end up being like Lucas? I don't know. But the offensive line has some potential. And then Harold Fannin, my guy. Is he ready? Because if you can have 2 tight ends on the field, I think that's when this offense could operate optimally. So it's like the offensive line, the 2 tight ends, who's going to be the running back? There's just a lot of questions here. Who's going to be the quarterback? So yeah, a lot to watch with the Browns.
I think Barry lost the plot. I mean, it's gotten. I feel like if you just go back and look at their
passing yards halfway through the year, Barry trades for DeVito. Trades for another quarterback, and Tommy DeVito starting for the Browns. But I wouldn't surprise me at this point.
But yeah, I mean, this team. I think it really started with it went into high gear with the Watson contract and and all that. But it's just been move after move. The drafts have gotten worse. Everything's reactive now. Like I don't even know that it benefits them to go back to the old Stefanski offense, but it was also questionable why they went to like such a spread offense. It didn't seem like it suited anybody. They had some of the worst quarterbacks to take snaps in the league over the past 3 years. You're talking up Kenny Pickett for some strange reason. You're talking up Joe Flacco, who is like, you should have just been happy to get that 5-game stretch 2 years ago. He wasn't even that same guy last year, or he would still be in Indianapolis, in my opinion. So, like, this is the guy that you're hoping starts for you in week 1 when you have rookies. I just think it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And then they're talking about Judkins. Oh yeah, we want him to be. He reminds us of Nick Chubb. Like that. That's always worrisome to me, where you're trying to harken back to a player without any idea of how it truly benefits you, and like it's just based on a comp. But I just think Barry's lost the plot. I think they have 5 quarterbacks, which means they have none. And Jerry Jeudy was only good with a pick 6 machine.
They're not a great run organization, but they're drowning from the Watson. Look, the AFC needed an elite quarterback. They took a shot with Watson.
Watson might be the best quarterback on their roster right now.
No,
dude.
He was the worst quarterback in the NFL last year.
You think a 40-year-old Joe Flacco with 2 day 3 picks and Kenny Pickett doesn't have that same potential?
Watson right now, sadly.
For now, until we see him for a couple games and realize, guys like that, when the floor finally truly comes, and it could definitely come.
Flacco will at least throw the ball down the field. Like Watson won't even do that.
Just saying, man.
At least like the ball could get tipped and caught. Like with Watson, it's nothing's gonna happen.
This is talking about an unserious team. I mean, come on. You draft 2 running backs and 2 quarterbacks, and somehow Flacco and Pickett are getting talked up. Come on.
All right, let's finish out the AFC with the Steelers. Obviously, made some splashes with Aaron Rodgers coming in. The trades with the Dolphins, bringing Jonnu Smith. I think could be a good fit again with Arthur Smith. You had Jalen Ramsey in the secondary. So curious to see how the secondary comes together. Can Roman Wilson give them anything, by the way? Like that's something that I'm watching. And then that young offensive line, they've invested a lot of resources into it. That needs to take the next step. I think the interior has a lot of potential. their tackles with Jones, Fatanu. I'm watching both of them to see how they develop. And then Aaron Rodgers, like, how washed is he? How much was it an injury last year? Like, if you're a Steelers fan, you're just hoping that I mentioned this on our pod before, that this is Brett Favre in his swan song with the Vikings. He went to the Jets. He had 22 touchdowns and 22 interceptions with the Jets. And then he went to the Vikings. And they were like a play away from going to the Super Bowl. They lost in overtime, and I think in the overtime to the Saints in the NFC Championship game, 2009, I think. And he threw a pick late. But the Steelers, like, doesn't even matter what we're talking about. Like, that they're going to win the turnover margin. They're plus 50 since 2019. They're going to win all the one possession games. They're going to finish 9-8. Does it even matter who's on the team? Like, isn't that just going to happen? So, yeah. But curious to see how the secondary comes together. Can Roman Wilson give them anything? Looking at this young offensive line, how they come together, specifically the tackle spots, and then just clues into Rodgers and how that all works out. Do you have any quick thoughts on the Steelers before we get out of here?
Yeah, I think this team's ceiling is ultimately going to be capped because Rodgers is definitely too washed to, I think, what you're probably going to have to do in the playoffs is beat at least two of Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar Jackson. I just don't think this team is truly built for that. Now, and again, is it something where you're looking back and trying to replicate, like, okay, Arthur Smith, Ryan Tannehill era where, you just kind of relied on a run game. You got Caleb Johnson, the rookie, who, I like that they're thinking ahead. Like, okay, we're probably going to see stacked boxes, so let's go out and get a guy that can beat them. But it's still not ideal, and you're kind of showing your hand that you're worried about defenses stacking the box. You aggressively go after a guy like Jonnu, who was the real. You really helped out that Tua. I don't think that Tua offense could have functioned half as well with him getting the ball out super quick and essentially not staying in the pocket for anything. Like, now we're just going to see that with Rodgers, because Rodgers, that the difference between Rodgers and Favre is Favre was old and gimpy, but he still would just throw it down the field. And when Rodgers does that, it's just not good. Things aren't happening anymore. And Metcalf, I don't think you want to make him run all inefficient routes. And, I think you have to use him in a very, like, true feature role, intermediate, short, deep, everything. And he has to be a target hot because you let go of Pickens, and then Jonnu, and those guys can be complementary. But you really have to kind of save Rodgers from himself, and your defense is going to be good enough to get you there. But when you play the big dogs, I don't think you have enough on offense. This
team's not been run correctly for years. I would have traded TJ Watt, by the way. I'm not giving TJ Watt, who's going to be 31 this year, like the beginning of the year. Even 3 years, $123 million. No thanks.
Yeah, it could be the beginning of the end, because we see it. You make these financial. Yeah,
you can see signs. I know that he was hurt. Yeah, that was dealing with an injury, but I'm not getting that much money for a team that you like. Is not, I don't think, is going to win the Super Bowl this year. But that's how they're acting with him. They're saying, "Oh, we got Rodgers. We're going to win the Super Bowl this year. So we got to make sure that we keep Watt." Good for him. I mean, he probably played that hand with their leverage. But this team needs a reset. Like, they've just been starving for a reset. They just got to find their quarterback. And it's hard to do when you're just 9-8 every year.
No one's separating in the AFC. Like, it's funny to me that, like, the reason Pittsburgh's probably even in this position is because you have the three elites, and I would say only Baltimore this year really is truly playing it, like, maximizing it from a intelligence standpoint and what they're doing. But none of these other teams that we thought might rise up have really made a case. Maybe Denver can kind of do it now, but like, you had the Chargers. I mean, that was embarrassing in the playoffs. Houston, we thought, and then they go and regress again. Miami at one point was a factor. Now they're a shit show. It's like, this is why Pittsburgh's hanging around. Is because
we say that, but like, then you look at their advanced numbers. That this is like they should be like a 6-7 win team every year. they're 62-7 when they win the turnover margin since 2009. 90% win rate. The rest of the NFL, I think you're around like 70%. They're plus 50 in turnover margins since 2019. They're one possession games. They're 43-20-1. They're winning close to 70, and they don't have elite quarterbacks. Like, it's crazy. This happens every year. They're plus 50 in turnover margins. It's the only team that's been positive in turnover margin every year since 2019. Like, can they keep winning the turnover battle and winning all these close games? I don't know.
Football's in a weird space right now because it's like even Baltimore is like it took them forever to get rid of Roman and now they got Monken and look, Lamar Jackson might have one of the best quarterback seasons of all time. Meanwhile, in Pittsburgh, let's go out and get Arthur Smith. That's the guy that we want to take us past some of the best quarterbacks of our generation of all time. Like I don't know. Tomlin, I think he gets too much flack. I think the reason they win these one possession games is because he works some magic with that defense and just gets those guys ready to go. They just need to help him on offense, and it just has been there.
The good thing that could work for the Steelers is like if you're a team in the AFC that's not one of the elites, then from a timing perspective, in 2 years is maybe when you want to hit that rookie quarterback, right? Because the last 4 or 5 years, you've had Mahomes, Allen, Jackson. So that was going to be hard to break through no matter what. So in 2 years from now, if you get that rookie quarterback and you hit, and then you get that rookie contract and then build your team, when these other quarterbacks are starting to age a little bit more, maybe that's the right window. And then so that's taken the optimist view. You've been competitive at least, you've made the playoffs. If you're a fan, you've been interested every week. So I don't know. All right, that's enough rambling the AFC. We got to get out here and get to the NFC. Close us out here.
Yes, sir. So that's gonna do it for this episode of the Action Network podcast. We'll have the NFC episode out shortly as well. And again, don't forget to save the date for August 23rd in Chicago. If you're in the area, I'll be there. Kerner will be there. Stuck will be there. You can find Stuck on X at Stuckey2. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this money.
Let go.